So, back in early 2026, the Super Bowl halftime show stopped being just about football and music. It became a cultural flashpoint. One single performance by one artist somehow managed to split a nation right down the middle, turning the biggest stage in America into a battleground over identity itself. Let's break down exactly how this happened. Okay, so get this. Right after the show, the numbers come in, and it's the most watched performance in history. Shatters all the records. But at the very same time, you have a former president calling it one of the worst ever and an affront to the greatness of America. So how? How can one 15-minute show get two completely opposite reactions? Well, the answer is in the artist, the political climate, and a whole bunch of subtle messages that were woven right into the performance. To really wrap our heads around what went down on that stage, you've got to understand the performer himself. See, Bad Bunny isn't just some global pop star. He's a deeply political figure, and his whole identity is absolutely central to this story. And this right here, this is basically the recipe for why his selection was so politically charged from day one. First, he's from Puerto Rico, a U.S. territory with a super complicated colonial history. Second, he sings almost entirely in Spanish, which right away challenges the idea of what mainstream American pop sounds like. And third, he has never, ever been shy about criticizing U.S. policy. And look, this wasn't some new thing for him. Not at all. His activism has been a part of his career from the beginning, whether it was calling out the government's response to Hurricane Maria, marching in the streets against corruption, or standing up for LGBTQ+ rights. For him, his art and his politics are the exact same thing. All right, so let's zoom out a bit and talk about the political climate at the time, because honestly, it was a tinderbox just waiting for a match. The Super Bowl didn't just happen in a bubble. It landed right in the middle of a national crisis. The main player in this part of the story is ICE. Under the Trump administration, its whole mission had changed, focusing on anyone believed to be in the U.S. illegally. This led to a ton of high-profile raids and protests. And by the end of 2025, things had escalated to a really scary new level. So in the weeks right before the Super Bowl, you have to understand tensions were at an absolute boiling point. The country was on edge after two civilians, Renee Nicole Good and an ICU nurse named Alex Frey, were killed during protests. It just ignited this firestorm of anger and fear all over the country. And the government's response? It wasn't to try and calm things down. No. Instead, you have high-level officials like Corey Lewandowski issuing these direct threats, basically promising that ICE agents would be at the Super Bowl specifically to find and deport undocumented fans. The stage was set for a massive confrontation. With all of that as the backdrop, a lot of people were expecting this super overt, in-your-face protest. But what Bad Bunny delivered was way more subtle, and honestly probably more powerful. He packed the entire performance with these quiet, symbolic messages. The first clue was the stage itself. The whole field was turned into what looked like the sugarcane fields of Puerto Rico. And that landscape is tied to a really deep and painful history of colonialism on the island. And this just shows how the set itself was a form of protest. People online picked up on it right away. The sugarcane fields are a direct reference to America's invasion back in 1898 and the economic exploitation that followed, which pushed a lot of the island into poverty. So before he even sang a single note, the stage was already a symbol of colonialism. The messages just kept coming, right down to his choice of guest. He brought out another Puerto Rican icon, Ricky Martin. And the song they performed together? That was a very, very specific choice. Yeah, the song was called What Happened to Hawaii. And I mean, the lyrics, they don't pull any punches. It's a clear critique of U.S. colonialism, drawing a straight line from what happened to Hawaii to the modern fears people in Puerto Rico have about their own resources being taken away. It was a political statement hidden inside a pop song. But, maybe the most powerful symbol of the entire night came near the end. Bad Bunny walked out of those sugarcane fields holding a Puerto Rican flag. But the color of the triangle, that was everything. See, that wasn't just any flag. It was the version with a light blue triangle, which is a historic symbol of Puerto Rican independence. In fact, that specific flag was actually banned by the U.S. government for decades. So waving it on the Super Bowl stage, that was a powerful, defiant act of resistance. Okay, so he's laid out all these symbols, this whole narrative, without saying much at all. So how did it land? Well, it created two completely different realities, two interpretations of the exact same event. In the only English he spoke all night, Bad Bunny listed 20 different nations from across the Americas. He spiked a football that read, "Together we are America," and ended with this message on the screen: "The only thing more powerful than hate is love." It was a very clear call for unity. But that's not how his critics saw it. Not at all. Donald Trump immediately went after the performance, saying things like, "Nobody understands a word this guy is saying," and calling the whole thing a slap in the face to our country. For them, the message wasn't unity. It was a direct attack. And this table just lays out the divide perfectly. You had these two parallel universes happening at the same time. On one side, Bad Bunny's show is breaking viewership records. On the other, you have this all-American counter show that was plagued with tech problems, got accused of faking its viewership numbers, and was pretty widely mocked. It just highlighted this massive cultural canyon. In the end, this one performance was like a perfect snapshot of a nation arguing with itself. It showed us how a stage, a song, and a flag can become the weapons in a fight over national identity. And it leaves us with this huge question. When our biggest cultural events become political battlefields, who actually gets to decide what's American?